Good morning to everyone. I'm not sure about the word of wisdom, but I'm very happy to be here. And I thank all of you, especially Jaspal, who worked with me. We overlapped physically in UGC, and I can tell you that was not a very comfortable time. And I'm sure all of you appreciate what I'm trying to say. But I think our loss at UGC is your gain here. And Jaspal, sometime back when he invited me, and he said, "Oh, you have to come." And I think trailing dots were, "You have no choice, but you have to come." So, but I appreciate that. I was a national level sports person myself. I represented Delhi University, Oxford University, Delhi State, and in the inter-university competition, our major problem used to be this university. So I'm very happy to be here. Jaspal just ran me through the campus, and I think all of you are very fortunate to be part of this university. It's a lovely campus, and I think you have a very dynamic Vice Chancellor. I don't need to say that, but I think university is fortunate and should exploit his presence here. This is alma mater, so only good things can happen. We are 48 years old. In the life of university or a higher education, this is really nascent here. This is a small age. But in the life of a human, I think 48, 49 is a very crucial time. You probably feel your energies are not waning off, your muscles are as strong, but actually the decline has begun some time back. But university is not a human life. There are universities where 1,000 years old and so on. So what I like to do today, because of my current job, I'm a scientist by training, I've run a research lab, I've been director of an institute for a long time. I've looked at universities over the last year or so which are underfunded, non-attended, some universities which are not so underfunded, etc. So there is a very complex issue. So if I may, I'll just speak about 3-4 points which have become very relevant, and a university such as yours, one of the finest state universities, this becomes even more relevant. I'll try to keep the provocative thoughts which is in my head vis-a-vis academia itself at bay, because that becomes very confusing. So I'm just going to share something about what education has come to mean, not only in India, we are still behind, but world over. So let me begin with this, that the education per se for years, for centuries, was really focused on, if you look at Padua or Verona or Oxford, Cambridge, some places in Europe, they're about 1,000 years old. And these physical structures were really, people went there, very few people went there. GER of England in the late 60s was only 4%. We talk about 90% now. So those who went there either did philosophy, they thought, and down and gown was not a term, they were separate from societies. Governments or the administration or kings or queens usually funded these places. And education meant that you did deep thinking. There was no pressure on you to do research or disseminate or do this. But you produced thoughts. It happened in Italy, it happened in Vienna, Austria, it happened everywhere. But it's only about 250 years back, 230 years back, when the modern university took birth. The people behind giving the modern idea of education or university per se are people like John Newman, who wrote copiously, taught at Oxford, he was a monk, started University of Dublin. Or people like, even more influential, like Humboldt. You must have heard about Humboldt fellowships. So Humboldt in Germany set up Berlin University. He was actually not an academic in true sense. He was an ambassador, he was a thinker, he was a political writer. And then that was the birth of modern universities. And universities at that time were supposed to be, उनको क्या करना था universities को? They had complete autonomy. And idea of university that time was that everybody from all walks of life, whether a doctor, lawyer or whatever, will come to a physical space. It will be a community of scholars, of those who teach or those who wish to be taught, and they will interact with each other. So what you learn inside the class, you will learn as much outside the class. This was education was come to be. State funded it completely. Germany, even today, so Europe is very different. Even today, Germany funds most of its higher education. So it's in Scandinavian country. And these universities did extremely well. They were completely autonomous. What they wanted to research, nobody bothered them. But they were paid by the state. And there's still GER were something about 10, 11. Everybody didn't have to go to university. University had complete autonomy of who would come to teach and who will be hired to teach. They had complete financial autonomy, and these are the three pillars of autonomy. Right now we talk so much about autonomy that it has come to mean confusion. These universities are very successful. Americans followed this European model, German model, and took it to another level. So as you and I today look at American University, Harvard, Cornell, Yale, Berkeley, Stanford, whatever, they are really based on what Germans set up. Very recently, Chinese have changed their system completely. China overhauled their system, which was very similar to Russian model and pretty similar to what we had, or what we have not had, and overhauled it to an American model. That's where you see the rankings coming in and so on and so forth. So let me just finish this stream by saying that these universities are very successful. They did research, they taught, but they what I call the educated people. Education would have meant that you went and learned and interacted with a large number of people. Education did not mean that you come out and you will immediately have a physical employment in industry or wherever. Education meant education. That you learn to talk, you learn to listen, you learn to debate. Of course, in the process of doing what you're doing, you became a doctor or a lawyer or a chemist or a physicist. Even today, if you went to Oxford or Cambridge or some of the top American university, your first year, second year is a very liberal education. PPE, which is stands for Political Science, Philosophy and Economics, is the most coveted course at Oxford even today. So education was a broad base. You fast forward it now, and what does education come to mean today? And this is not my own narrative, it's just that education has been now tied up with the ability to find a job. And you will not be surprised, because some of the time when the parameters, whether your university is doing badly or my university is doing well, one of the parameters is how many of my students get jobs the day they leave the university. I'm not taking this side or that side, but that's what education is. How did it happen? When did it happen? If you trace back history of education, it happened sometime after I have to make sure that I don't take too much time. It happened at the time when the Second World War got over. A lot of young people who were involved, actually in fighting the war, went back to universities. Peace, as it were, descended. And just remember, the best research which came out in physics was in 1910, 1920, 1930, during First World War, after First World War. And there's a huge amount written about at that time. But that happened because education was the so-called education of what university was completely free of any pressure. So you had de Broglie, you had Einstein, you had Chauhan, you had all sorts of, all best physics. Even today, what you go back, if you find out gravitational waves, which was the discovery of 2016, it was actually predicted at that time We should be able to detect gravitational waves. It took us 100 years to do so, but it was predicted then. So, point I'm trying to make, university did brilliantly well when they were free to do what they wanted to do. After the war, or after when it's all descended, and we are in 48, 50s. So I just immediately come to India now. So what happened let me just get Europe out of the way. So more people wanted to go to university. Middle classes rose. There were a large amount of middle classes in 50s and 60s in UK, USA. Everybody wanted to go to university. Probably for education, also for social status. Higher education brought social status, and so on. And that now, of course, you have your graduate enrollment ratios in Scandinavian country as much as 80-90%. US is about 90%. We are somewhere about 24%. And an economist will tell you that the development of a country, if not directly, but pretty much proportional to your GER. In Indian context, this can mix up the issue, but I'll leave that alone for the time being. I'll come again. I think we can have that discussion another time. I want you to now consider what happened in 47, 48, 49 in India. Or suppose you were Jawaharlal Nehru, or you were Kalam, or you were people who were confronted with just 200 university, 200 colleges and 20 university. Now total number of people in higher education, 110, 120,000. For a country of the size of 350 million people. That's a shocking number if you think. 110,000 students, 120 in 200 colleges, mostly private, and just 22 universities. Most of them to produce babus for British at that time. So a lot of us criticize what is happening today. All of us criticize, this is not working, that is not working, UGC doesn't work, that doesn't work. Imagine what India has been able to do in the 60, 70 years, which some people think is a long time, and I think it's a very short time for a country which has just 110,000 students in higher education to 3.6 crore in higher education, from 20 universities to 850 universities, from 200 colleges to roughly 40,000 colleges. Just take a deep breath and think what the expansion has been. India is the second largest higher education center, and there's no surprise to me at least that everybody from wherever they are, whether they're ranking agencies or foreign university, just think there's a piece of cake they're about to eat here. This is not stopped. This is something which is going to go forward. So in this expanded version, those of you who do physics or science would know when the system expands, the entropy or degree freedom also goes up. So systems do become unmanageable. And what we see in 2017-16 is a system which is still expanding, and we want to regulate, control, find quality in it. So I'm trying to address the younger crowd here, especially the students or the young faculty, because the onus or the responsibility of what happens from now onwards will be squarely on your shoulder. Past 5, 6, 7 years or 10 years, Jaspal will bear me out. And you know that there's much talk about quality. But remember, it's still expanding system. If a GER has to go from 24 to let's say 30, which is equal to Brazil or South Africa, or why should we be stuck in Brazil or South Africa? Let's say we want to be 50%, which will mean people between the age of 18 and 24, 25 will have access and be educated, so-called higher education. And that's very exciting. But that means you would have to have about 1,700 universities and about 70,000, 80,000 colleges. You may revamp your system, you may change system from affiliated college to this or that, do whatever you want or do whatever we want. But the system would need to expand to that extent. And I can assure you from whatever I've done, the Seventh Pay Review Commission went all over the country. The gap between accessing the education and those of us who can access is still very large. So in that sense, those of you who occupy spaces up there, you really come in the top 5% of this country. It's an amazing privilege to get higher educated in a university like the present university. But no privilege to my mind should come without a great sense of responsibility. So how these things are going to go forward will entirely depend on your sense of honesty, your sense of integrity, your sense of hard work, your sense of nation building. We would have passed on from here. But what our forefathers managed to do, I think I celebrate that. To be able to, in 1.5 really trivialize. Mind you, I agree. Ramesh will tell me we've not spent enough money. I totally agree. There should have been much more money. If you want quality of research, science research is expensive. And when I argue this in the government, which I more and more do now, I don't think anyone in government or even in academia, unless you've seen very high quality, we do not realize how expensive is science research. So we were having this meeting in Principal Science Secretary only 2 weeks back, what Mr. Modi should speak in January. So probably the best model was to share, and inter-university centers of UGC came up right at the top when we analyzed them. Of the money spent on inter-university center in Pune or in Delhi was the most cost-effective way of sharing. So when you people get into business of policy making decisions, which you will, some of you will, you remember when you are poor, when you have less, community told us that the sharing is the best possible way. So these ideas will come in. So the quality cannot happen without money, but I was confronted with the question, if we give, let's say, 1 lakh crore to higher education tomorrow, not 10,000 crore, which Institutes of Eminence will get. 10,000 crore sound big money because we haven't spent money, but 10,000 crore to 10 universities actually is a pittance. I've been arguing this is a very small amount of money. Because we haven't seen money, therefore it looks big money. For science, it is really very small money. But let's say there are 1 lakh crore. Will there be sudden shift from here to here? I don't think so. Money is necessary, but money is not sufficient condition. Sufficient condition is you, myself, younger people there. Sufficient condition will come from individual notion of quality within ourselves. If we honestly feel when nobody is around us, we sit down in a chair in the evening and ask, have I done as well as I could have with the resources we have? If the answer is robust, yes, then I think quality is not compromised. But I dare say that the robust answer is not no, is not yes. If it were yes, we would not have such large number of predatory journals. If it was yes, then I should not have been chairing a committee to tell you where to publish, where not to publish. If it were yes, I didn't have to tell you that you can't publish a book in 15 days and so on. So I think we, academia, must own up their responsibility to clear this up. Individually, at a department level, at a university level, I think finger is robustly at us. And I really address the younger people in this crowd, be extremely aware of this. It's very easy to say you, the regulator, or you, the government, no matter what the government is, you are at fault, you're not doing this for us. But I just want you to consider, are we doing our best in the condition that we are? If that answer begins to be yes, even by 70% of us, I can tell you our quality will go from here to here. It is about being regular, it's about being hardworking, it's about being honest, it's about being... Go and do what you enjoy the most. That's why you came to this field. Why did I go and teach? Why did Ramesh go? Why did all of you come into the profession? Presumably, because we enjoy this profession. I go to lab even today and I enjoy being there. I have nothing to... I think I can go on forever, but I'll stop now. Last thing I'll just say that I was heading the 7th Pay Review Commission. And again and again, professor will tell us, which I think I'll put it to you, I'll put it to people there, that I become professor now, but I have no incentive, more incentive to do research. And I look at these faces, I can't believe if incentives, financial incentive in this case, is going to produce better research, then you might as well not do research. Research is about being able to at least first have a question in your head and then answering how would you start answering, and you answer that question with the joy of answering that question. Not because I'll get 2,000 rupees more or 3,000 rupees more. I've never heard something more stupid than there's no incentive. Incentive is the job that you manage, you are in, because you do something, you get paid for something you really enjoy. So I finally stop here. I can go on for a long time because there's so many things to share with you. But finally I address the students. There is no profession better than teaching. I said maybe. With the exception of maybe being a good doctor. So I'm not looking at just part for this. With the exception, possible exception. But there's no place where you can influence people. There's no place where you can drive more self-satisfaction than the profession that you are in or the profession you will get in. I hope all of you try to come back to teaching. The quality is in your hand. Quality is a notion which should be in your head. All it needs is a good look at honest hard work. So go forward. The word is for you to take. Word, you embrace word. You are privileged, more privileged than you realize, and take up the responsibility to build your university, your colleges, your nation, and all that. Thank you.